Hi, it's me, Dave. Sorry to interrupt whatever you were doing, but have you ever heard of High Guardian Spice?
Yeah, we bloody know. You never shut up about it.
Okay, I talk about this show too much. It's almost like High Guardian Spice is what this channel is about or something. So what am I going to be making fun of this time? Well, nothing, because we're changing up the formula, that's right. Believe it or not, I'm going to be talking about something I like in High Guardian Spice. Whoa, crazy. Or well, I'll try my best, because there's so much bad in this show that even the good things end up getting ruined. I've used this analogy before, but the good things in this show are like sprinkles on top of a dumpster fire. I mean, I like sprinkles, but am I really willing to jump into a flaming inferno of garbage just to get a few sprinkles? The answer to that question is absolutely, because I'm a psycho. Speaking of psychos, Amaryllis. Man, I'm so incredible at segues, aren't I? Amaryllis is the best character in this show. It's not even a debate, no one else comes close. And if you disagree with that, you're wrong. Amaryllis rules over these losers, and your opinion is automatically invalidated, and everything you've ever said is wrong. Okay, I'm kidding. You're allowed to like whatever characters you want, even if they're bad. If Sage is your favorite character, then more power to you. Same goes for liking this show in general. I don't, and I don't really understand why you would, but if you do, then good on you. This video is being made by a guy who liked Life is Strange, and liked Chloe as well. I can't explain why I do. I know she's terrible and you're free to make fun of me for this opinion, but it is what it is. Putting my horrible taste behind us, why do I think Amaryllis is the best character in this show? Well, why don't we look at some of the things she's done throughout the series and see if we can figure it out. Amaryllis is introduced in the second episode of the show, and her literal first line is,
"Don't worry, I'm here. At ease, pores."
One of the first things she does in this series is proudly announce her existence, then make fun of the other people for being poor. She then, in the middle of class, just starts bullying Sage to be a dick.
Your family can read? That is wild.
Now, when I first watched this, I didn't have my hatred for Sage, since I haven't seen all the stuff that she did in the series yet, so I wasn't really that ecstatic to see Amaryllis make fun of her. It is much funnier the second time around, though. Now, I said I was going to try and be positive in this video, but I have to admit Amaryllis isn't all that great in the first episode she's introduced in. She acts like a dick to Sage throughout the entire thing for no discernible reason. The only explanation that I could come up with for this is that she just doesn't like poor people. So starting out, we're introduced to a rich snob who bullies people for being poor. There's also the potions class scene, which I hate so much. In this scene, Amaryllis unintentionally protects Sage by spilling her tea. So in being a petty jerk, she accidentally helps Sage by allowing her not to get poisoned. So in the second episode, Amaryllis is supposed to be a jerk who constantly dunks on Sage, only for Sage to be the one to save her life in the end. Sage in this episode looks nice and sympathetic, meanwhile Amaryllis looks like a snobby jerk. So why do a majority of people like the snobby jerk over this other character who's supposed to be likable? Something seems off here. There are several reasons why you would like Amaryllis more than Sage, and I'll get into those later, but I think a big one right now is intent. Sage is supposed to be a likable character. There's only one issue. She isn't a likable character. I have an entire video explaining why, so if you want more info, go watch that, but she's a petty, vindictive bitch who has very few likable character traits. The writers wanted us to sympathize with her, that's pretty obvious. They wanted us to like her. The only issue is they failed. Because of that, there's a conflict between what's happening on screen and what the story wants us to believe. Amaryllis, on the other hand, is supposed to be a psycho. She's written that way consistently, and the story treats her as such. If you haven't noticed, I'm a guy who's big on consistency. Not that things can't change, but when they do change, they have to change in ways that make sense. Whenever Amaryllis does something stupid and crazy, not only does the story treat it that way, but it also makes sense. Whenever Amaryllis starts pulling out a terrasphere and blasting students, we aren't questioning why the hell she's doing it. We're like, oh yeah, Amaryllis would do that. And that's what makes it funny. But let's say Amaryllis was characterized as a nice, kind-hearted person who's willing to put petty issues aside. Let's just say that throughout the series she was super nice, respectful, and had the patience of a saint to boot. And then, just for the heck of it, why don't we also say that in one of the episodes she decided to take out her weapon and smash someone's bones simply because they minorly insulted one of their friends. And then let's also say that immediately afterward, she was rewarded by one of the teachers in the school that threatens to suspend people for violence against others.
Cut the sarcasm, Snapdragon. The Triad would want me to suspend you.
Don't you notice how that makes no sense at all? We're adding 2 plus 2 and getting 5. The math doesn't work out. Now, if it isn't obvious, I was talking about Parsley there. In episode 6, Parsley decides to smash Aster's foot simply because Aster was being a little bit of a jerk. Parsley is the same character who spent like the entirety of the previous episode trying to break up Snapdragon and Rosemary's little petty issues with each other. She's a lot more patient and kind-hearted than the other girls and is absolutely the last person who would do this. It's like for that scene in particular, she transformed into a completely different character simply because the writers wanted it to happen. Pretty much every single main character has a point in the story where they break their own character because the writers just didn't know how to get a certain scene to happen otherwise. And Amaryllis seems to be the exception to this because throughout the entire series she's pretty much consistent with how she acts. I think this is a main part of the reason why she's so likable, because she's actually a character. She's not just a marionette that's being transformed depending on what the scene needs. Most of the time. I have to say that because this is High Guardian Spice, nobody's safe. Amaryllis does really stand out as interesting in this show filled with stereotypical blocks of wood. 90% of the characters are just a bunch of tropes smashed together inside of a blender. So this might be a case of big fish, small pond. I really do think Amaryllis is what allowed me to get through this show the first time around. After the scene where she just went onto the courtyard and started blasting people with lasers, I was always excited to see what crazy bullshit she would pull next. She is the MVP of this entire series, and she gets way better as the episodes go on. Now, in episode 2, she was mostly just an unlikable jerk, but throughout the series we start to see some more character traits surface that make her actually more likable and relatable. Amaryllis' relationship with Snapdragon is, I think, one of the big ones. Amaryllis is typically a murder-hungry psycho, and yet she treats Snapdragon with a lot of respect as a friend. However, when she does do this, it doesn't feel like she's breaking character because, again, Snapdragon is her best friend and has been her best friend throughout the entire series. If she was going to open up to someone, it would be Snapdragon. It doesn't feel like she's breaking character, it feels like there's just another side to this axe gremlin that we haven't seen before. This is why we can like Amaryllis even if she does immoral stuff. Because she's written that way on purpose, her flaws are intentional. Also, it's hilarious, in this sea of bland and boring dumbasses, we finally have a character who stands out. And a majority of her jokes actually land too, they had me chuckling sometimes.
I feel alive!
Amaryllis' writing seems to have a special focus that the rest of the story is left out on. She does do stupid stuff, but the stupid stuff is written to be stupid intentionally. When Amaryllis makes a mistake, not only does the story treat it as a mistake, but it's also typically hilarious. This in comparison to the other characters who act stupid, usually due to bad writing. One thing you'll notice is, again, it all comes down to purpose and intent. Amaryllis is written with a lot of focus, the writers know what they want and they know how to get it. As for the other characters, a lot of them don't have this focus, the writers don't know exactly what they want and they don't know how to achieve it. Most likely due to the fact that a lot of these characters are extremely shallow. That's why I think Amaryllis is the best character in High Guardian Spice, and it's one of the few good things about this series. It's a shame we're likely never going to get a season 2 and won't see her again. God, I wish she was in a better show. And that's kind of all I had to say, really. I thought this video would be longer. When I'm talking about the negatives, there's so much that I can get these videos up to like 20 minutes, but here we're only like 8 minutes in. I think that goes to show how very few redeeming qualities this show actually has. Also, Snapdragon, where'd your lipstick go, buddy? Oh yeah, that one's going in the animation errors video when I get to this episode. But that's basically all I'd had to say, so I guess I'll talk to you guys later. See you around.
Basically, old magic is dumb.